One basic concern about advertising more generally is that it fosters excessive commercialization and commercialism in our society. As advertising becomes more pervasive throughout our culture and our society, does it skew our values and ideas in some profound way? As individuals going about our lives, we are subject to just endless commercial messages in a range of different media. Does that skew our own value system so that we associate consumer products with success? Does it lead us to become a more materialist society where we define happiness and success and contentment in terms of the purchase of consumer products? Does it discourage us from thinking about other ways to be happy or successful in our own lives? The Truth Campaign was a series of public service announcements and ads that discouraged people from smoking, particularly young people, and tried to really challenge a lot of the cultural myths about cigarette smoking, that it is somehow a sign of masculinity or strength or independence. And the ads really showed in very dramatic ways some of the damaging effects of smoking. But I guess my question here is, do you think that these kinds of public service announcements and ads are effective? Do you think that they really do play a role in discouraging people from engaging in unhealthy practices? Or do you think young people just tend to tune out these kinds of ads or messages? What do you think? Advertising plays a critical role in our political system here in the U.S., especially at the state and federal level. Political candidates rely heavily on advertising in an array of different media to convince people to vote for them and to win elections. It's pretty much conventional wisdom that a candidate cannot successfully run for a federal or state office without sufficient political advertising. And we saw that in the last 2012 presidential campaign that huge amounts of money were spent for advertising, particularly on television commercials, television ads for one or another candidate. Now, I guess this increasing dependence on advertising in politics and in our elections raises a couple of important questions. One is, does the use of advertising in politics and political campaigns, does it debase our democratic process in certain fundamental respects? Here, the argument is that advertising relies on slick sound bites. Ads are short and sweet. TV commercials probably last maybe 30 seconds, and that the ads have to be so short and brief that they reduce very complicated issues to very superficial slogans and sound bites. And some argue that a lot of these ads are not really intended to inform citizens about current issues, but rather the ads are intended to manipulate people in certain ways through unflattering pictures or images of one's opponent. Ads try to demonize opponents by presenting them as, just bad, awful people. All right. So the question is, does advertising manipulate citizens in a democratic society to vote for this or that candidate just on some very superficial, subjective, emotional appeal? All right, and is that a really good way to run a democracy? There's also the concern about the corrupting influence of money in political advertising. Ads, especially for television, cost a lot. That you cannot be a serious player in a state or federal election or campaign unless you have significant financial resources and reserves to pay for these ads that can cost in the millions, right? In terms of producing them, buying airtime, time in various media. Well, what does that mean for our political system if the only candidates that can successfully run for these offices have these financial resources? Well, some critics argue that one consequence of this dependence on expensive political ads is that the only people that get elected for offices or even run a credible campaign are those that are bankrolled by wealthy corporate interests in our society. That you can't run for office unless you've got some very wealthy backers. Or if you're like Bloomberg in New York, you're a billionaire yourself, all right, so that you can pay for your own ads. So does this dependence on political advertising and its costs restrict our political system to only the wealthy and those that are backed by the wealthy? All right, and then does that mean that political groups and parties that represent views that aren't backed by these wealthy interests, does that mean that those perspectives are largely ignored from consideration in our political system? All right, so again, does the need for money in political ads skew our whole democracy and system towards wealthy interests and those that have the financial capital to participate in this process?